It is a crisp spring morning. A young boy, bursting with the boundless energy of an 11-year-old, steps out of his father's car. He flashes a quick smile, waves goodbye, and turns toward his school building. The distance between the car door and the safety of the school gates is exactly 150 meters. That is less than the length of 2 American football fields. It is a walk that should take no more than 2 minutes, a straight line, an open, familiar space. Yet, in that incredibly brief window of time and distance, this boy vanishes from the face of the earth. Days later, as an entire nation holds its breath, his belongings begin to surface. A backpack here, a pair of sneakers there, scattered across miles of rugged, unforgiving wilderness. These items form a massive, eerie triangle on the map, a geometry of terror pointing towards a devastating truth. A colossal manhunt ensues, with hundreds of police officers and volunteers tearing through the dense forests. But the most chilling part of this entire tragedy? The monster they were desperately hunting wasn't hiding in the dark woods. He was hiding in plain sight, walking right alongside the search parties, playing the role of the terrified father. Hello everyone, and welcome to The Puppeteer. Today we are going to dive deep into a case that will shatter your perception of safety and make you question the true faces of the people closest to you. Settle in, lock your doors, and let's unravel the harrowing mystery of the 150-meter disappearance. Before we dive in, there is a chilling, bizarre detail you need to know about this family. Both the 11-year-old victim and his stepfather shared the exact same given name, Yuki. While he was a stepson, in Western culture we often distinguish a father and son sharing a name by adding Junior. So to avoid confusion as we tell this story, we will adopt this convention and refer to the young boy as Yuki Junior and refer to the stepfather simply as Yuki. To truly understand the atmosphere of this case, we first need to transport ourselves to Nantan City. Located in the central part of Kyoto Prefecture, Japan, Nantan is not the bustling, neon-lit metropolis of Tokyo or Osaka that you might picture when you think of Japan. Imagine instead a place that feels a bit like the Appalachian Mountains or the remote, heavily forested regions of the Pacific Northwest in the United States. It is a serene, deeply rural landscape surrounded by towering emerald green mountains. The area is famous for its cascading terraced rice fields and ancient, dense forests that look like they were pulled straight from a picturesque watercolor painting. It is the kind of tight-knit community where everyone knows everyone, and crime is almost an alien concept. However, as we will soon see, this breathtaking natural beauty can quickly transform into a green fortress, a perfect natural barrier designed to swallow up unspeakable secrets and hide them within the impenetrable woods. The date was March 23, 2026. It was a Monday, and spring was in full, glorious swing. In the United States, the school year typically ends in the early summer, but in Japan, the academic calendar is intimately tied to the changing of the seasons. The school year wraps up in March, perfectly coinciding with the iconic nationwide blooming of the cherry blossoms. At Sonobe Elementary School, a public school nestled in the hills of Nantan, the air was thick with the sweet scent of flowers and the nervous excitement of students. It was a day of profound significance. Over 100 sixth graders were preparing for their graduation ceremony, a massive milestone marking the end of their elementary school journey. But there is a unique tradition in many Japanese schools that you won't typically find in the West. The fifth graders are also required to attend the graduation ceremony. It is not just an audience role, it is a highly ceremonial passing of the torch. The younger students are there to formally accept the responsibilities and leadership roles left behind by the graduating seniors. Among these fifth graders, brimming with anticipation for this important day, was 11-year-old Yuki Junior Adachi. Yuki Jr. was a vibrant, wildly energetic kid. He lived in what sociologists would call a multi-generational household, a traditional living arrangement that is becoming rare in the West but still holds strong in rural parts of Japan. Under one roof lived Yuki Jr., his mother, his stepfather, his grandmother, and even his great-grandmother. Being the only child in a house filled with 4 generations of adults, you can imagine how deeply he was cherished. He was the undisputed center of their universe, raised in a cocoon of fierce love and meticulous care. The Adachi family home was located on the extreme outskirts of the school district, roughly 9 kilometers or about 5.5 miles from Sundobe Elementary. Because of this considerable distance, Yuki Jr. usually relied on the school bus to commute. However, living on the very edge of the route meant he was unfortunately placed at the very first stop. To catch that bus, the 11-year-old had to wake up before 7 a.m. every single day and then endure a long, winding ride as the bus slowly snaked through the mountains, picking up other children. Wanting to give their growing boy just a little bit of extra rest, his parents made a loving pact. Whenever their work schedules allowed, they would completely bypass the bus and drive him to and from school themselves. This small sacrifice on their part gifted Yuki Jr. almost an entire extra hour of precious sleep. Usually, his mother, who had more flexible hours, handled the morning drop-offs, but on this particular Monday, the day of the graduation ceremony, his stepfather, Yuki Adachi, had a surprisingly light work schedule and offered to take over the morning run. At 7:30 a.m., Yuki Jr. went through his usual morning routine. He put on his bright yellow school hat, a standard safety measure for young students in Japan to make them highly visible to drivers. He hoisted his bright yellow backpack onto his shoulders, said goodbye to the women of the house, and hopped into his stepfather's car. The drive through the winding mountain roads was smooth, and about 30 minutes later, they arrived at a parking lot situated right near the school grounds. Yuki Jr. stepped out of the car. He turned back, flashed a smile, and waved goodbye to the man he called his father. Then he turned and began the short 150-meter walk toward the main academic building. 150 meters. It is a distance so trivial you wouldn't even think twice about it. Yet in that brief expanse of asphalt and schoolyard, an invisible abyss opened up. 11-year-old Yuki Junior Adachi stepped forward and vanished from the world. Fast forward 3.5 hours, it is now 11:30 a.m. and the grand graduation ceremony has officially concluded. The atmosphere outside the school gates is electric. Parents are gathered in large, excited clusters, holding flowers and cameras, eagerly waiting to greet their children. The school entrance transforms into a sea of noise, laughter, and organized chaos. Slowly, the crowd begins to thin out as families reunite and head home to celebrate. But Yuki Jr.'s mother, who had arrived to pick him up, is left standing alone. She waits patiently, scanning the diminishing crowd, assuming he is just caught up talking with his friends. Then her phone rings. It is Yuki Jr.'s homeroom teacher. The teacher's voice is laced with confusion as he asks a question that makes the mother's blood run cold. Why didn't Yuki Jr. attend the graduation ceremony today? You might be asking yourself, why on earth did the teacher wait 3.5 hours to make that phone call? In the sheer logistical nightmare of coordinating a massive event with hundreds of students and parents, the teacher simply didn't have a spare second to step away and verify the attendance list until the ceremony was entirely over. For Yuki Jr.'s mother, the teacher's question was like a physical blow to the chest. Her initial confusion instantaneously spiraled into sheer, blinding panic. What did he mean Yuki Jr. didn't show up? Her husband had explicitly driven him to school and dropped him off right at the gates that very morning. How could he possibly be absent? Realizing that this was not a simple misunderstanding and sensing that something was terribly, fundamentally wrong, Yuki Jr.'s stepfather, Yuki, contacted the Kyoto Prefectural Police at exactly 12 p.m. to officially report his son missing. The police response was immediate. They didn't waste a single second. An investigative perimeter was quickly established around Sonobe Elementary. Detectives began by interviewing Yuki Junior's 5th grade classmates, desperately hoping someone had seen him wandering the halls or playing outside, but every single child shook their head. No one had laid eyes on Yuki Jr. all morning. According to the statement provided by his stepfather, Yuki, the sequence of events was straightforward. Yuki Jr. got out of the car at the parking lot, walked toward the main school gate, and then needed to cross a wide open sports field to reach the front doors of the teaching building. The school security was seemingly robust. There were 2 wide-angle security cameras mounted high up on the exterior of the main building. Their lenses were specifically angled to provide a sweeping, unobstructed view of almost the entire sports field. Investigators eagerly pulled the footage, expecting to track Yuki Jr.'s exact movements. But as they sat in the security room, watching the monitors intently, their hearts sank. They rewound and replayed the tape for the entire morning window. The footage showed the empty field, the gentle breeze moving the trees, but it did not show Yuki Jr. He never appeared on the screen. This meant the unthinkable had happened. Whatever anomaly occurred, it took place entirely within that tiny, terrifying blind spot. The space between the parking lot where he allegedly exited the car and the edge of the school gate before the cameras could catch him. Desperate for a lead, the police rapidly expanded their digital dragnet. They pulled footage from every single security camera on the surrounding streets. They tracked down parents who attended the graduation and subpoenaed the dashcam video from cars parked near the school that morning. Detectives spent hours scrutinizing every single frame, looking for a yellow hat or a yellow backpack. The result? Absolutely nothing. It was as if the earth had simply opened its mouth and swallowed the boy whole. The core problem facing the Kyoto police was a detective's worst nightmare. This wasn't a standard missing persons case where someone wanders off from a known starting point. Because he never appeared on the school cameras, they lacked a definitive last-seen location. Without a point of origin, the investigation was effectively paralyzed, and the difficulty of the search multiplied exponentially. The physical search rapidly expanded from the immediate school grounds to the surrounding wilderness. To understand the complexity of this search, you have to picture the geography of Sonobe Elementary. It is situated in a rather isolated, highly undulating mountainous terrain. It is surrounded by thick, ancient forests and a network of deep, fast-flowing rivers. There are essentially only 2 logical paths a person could take to enter or leave the school area. The first route is the main arterial road. It is fairly well traveled, flanked by a local police station, a few convenience stores, and has a decent amount of foot and vehicle traffic. Consequently, it is heavily monitored by security cameras. Investigators checked the digital footprint of Yuki Jr.'s electronic transit card, a card similar to a city subway pass. There was 0 new activity. If Yuki Jr. had decided to run away or had wandered off down this main road, he would have had to do it on foot. The police meticulously reviewed every second of footage from this route. They found 0 evidence of him. The second route is a stark contrast. It is a steep, highly secluded back road that cuts through the woods. It is primarily used only by local parents as a dedicated, unofficial access road to drive their children up to the school gates, avoiding the main traffic. This was the exact road that Yuki Jr. and his stepfather had driven up that morning. The police analyzed the logic of the situation. For an 11-year-old boy to turn around and walk back down this steep, lonely road on foot, completely alone, without catching the attention of the steady stream of parents driving up for the graduation ceremony, it defied all human logic. With no digital footprint, no physical evidence, and a complete lack of eyewitnesses, the case was rapidly devolving into a baffling, terrifying enigma. Recognizing that they were racing against a rapidly closing window of survivability, the Kyoto police drastically escalated their efforts on the second day. The operation transformed from a local search into a massive, regional manhunt. Over 500 police officers were mobilized and deployed into the mountains. Specialized search and rescue dogs were brought in, their noses pressed desperately to the damp earth, trying to catch any lingering scent of the boy. Tactical teams combed through the claustrophobic density of the forests, divers dragged the icy, murky local waterways, and officers painstakingly cleared dozens of abandoned, decaying buildings scattered throughout the hills. Simultaneously, a massive public awareness campaign was launched. Yuki Junior's face was broadcast across national television and plastered on the official police website. The authorities released high-definition photos and a highly detailed description of his appearance, begging the public for any scrap of information. For Yuki Junior's family, it was an all-hands-on-deck nightmare. They poured out into the streets, driven by pure adrenaline and terror. Every parent, every investigator, and every volunteer understood the grim statistics. In cases involving missing children, the first 48 hours are the golden window. After that, the odds of a safe recovery plummet drastically. The clock was ticking, echoing loudly in the silence of the mountains. The details provided to the police by Yuki Junior's stepfather, Yuki, were incredibly specific. He stated that Yuki Jr. was wearing his yellow school hat, a distinct white hoodie with the number 84 printed boldly on the front, a dark gray outer jacket, khaki trousers, black sneakers, and was carrying his bright yellow backpack. These precise details, alongside Yuki Jr.'s smiling photo, were printed on thousands of flyers. The entire extended family practically lived on the streets, taping the flyers to utility poles, storefronts, and bus stops. The emotional toll was unbearable to witness. Yuki Jr.'s grandmother, the woman who had spent the last 11 years helping to raise him from infancy, flat out refused to stay home and wait for a phone call. Despite her frail health, her advancing age, and severe mobility issues that made walking painful, she dragged herself up and down the rugged, uneven mountain paths near the school. Heartbroken witnesses reported seeing the elderly woman pacing along the muddy banks of a small creek near the campus, leaning heavily on a walking stick, weeping uncontrollably as she called out her grandson's name into the empty woods. Adding an entirely new layer of profound tragedy to the situation, Yuki Jr.'s mother revealed a heartbreaking detail to the investigators. According to the family's long-standing plans, Yuki Jr. and his parents were supposed to board a plane the very next day, March 24th, for a highly anticipated overseas vacation. The flights were booked, the luggage was being packed, and the itinerary was set. It was supposed to be a week of joyous family memories. Instead, they were living inside a waking nightmare, trapped in a town that had swallowed their boy. As the days dragged on, the media coverage intensified. The story of a boy vanishing in broad daylight, mere steps from his school, gripped the entire nation. In the eyes of the community, Yuki Jr. wasn't just a face on a poster. He was a beloved local fixture. He was known as a wildly energetic, highly social kid. Every single day after school, without fail, he would run to the local after-school care center. He was the kind of boy who possessed a rare emotional intelligence, easily bridging age gaps. He played hide-and-seek and complex group games with kids much older and much younger than him. His absence left a gaping hole in the community. When his friends learned he was missing, the after-school center was engulfed in sorrow. Children cried, praying for his safe return, just wanting their playmate back. But as journalists swarmed the area, they highlighted a terrifying environmental reality. The region surrounding Sonobe Elementary wasn't just a standard patch of woods, It was a designated, heavily protected wildlife sanctuary. The forests were teeming with wild boars, aggressive raccoons, and other potentially dangerous wildlife. If Yuki Jr. was out there alone, exposed to the freezing spring nights and the unpredictable wildlife, his chances of survival were dropping to zero. Public anxiety quickly mutated into anger, and much of that fury was directed at the homeroom teacher for the agonizing 3.5-hour delay in reporting Yuki Jr.'s absence. People demanded to know how a child could be missing for hours without anyone raising the alarm. The devastated teacher was forced to defend himself, explaining a fatal, tragic miscommunication. He told police that he had previously received a formal notice from Yuki Jr.'s parents stating the boy would be absent on March 24th for their family vacation. When Yuki Jr. didn't show up on the morning of the 23rd, the overwhelmed teacher, juggling the chaos of graduation, made a catastrophic mental error. He mixed up the dates in his head, assuming the family's vacation had simply started one day early. This single human mistake resulted in a devastating lag in the initial police response. Time is a relentless enemy in missing persons cases. 5 agonizing days passed with absolutely no sign of the boy. Then, on March 29th, the investigation finally experienced a massive breakthrough development. About 3 kilometers, or roughly 2 miles northwest of Sonobe Elementary, deep within a heavily forested mountainous area, family members who were participating in a civilian search party stumbled upon something behind a rusted roadside guardrail. It was a yellow backpack tipped over in the dirt. Inside, they found a scarf and a bright yellow hat. The police were immediately called to the scene. The items were positively identified. They belonged to Yuki Jr. However, this critical discovery did not bring relief or clarity. Instead, it tore the case wide open, injecting a massive dose of confusion and suspicion into the investigation. The location where the backpack was found made absolutely zero logistical sense. If Yuki Jr. had walked from the school to this specific spot, it would have taken a healthy, fast-walking adult nearly 50 minutes. The route to get there was treacherous, requiring a trek across expansive muddy rice paddies and winding dirt roads. Furthermore, large sections of this route had absolutely no streetlights. Once the sun went down, the area plunged into pitch-black darkness. Local residents, when interviewed by detectives, expressed extreme skepticism. They pointed out that even adults who had lived in the area their entire lives rarely walked that specific path alone, especially near dusk. Why would an 11-year-old boy far away from home embark on such a terrifying journey? Moreover, this location was over 8 kilometers, 5 miles away from Yuki Jr.'s house. It was completely outside his known daily routine and activity radius. The idea that he had willingly wandered there was absurd. But then came a detail that sent absolute chills down the spines of the veteran investigators. According to meteorological records and local media reports, the Nantan area had experienced intermittent, heavy rainfall over the past few days. The ground where the backpack was found was saturated, damp, and muddy. Yet when forensics examined the yellow backpack, it was perfectly, immaculately dry. There were no water stains, the fabric wasn't damp, there was absolutely no evidence that this bag had been sitting outside exposed to the rain for 5 days. The bizarre clues didn't stop there. According to the family members who found the bag, the ground just a few feet away was covered in a thick, deep layer of dark brown fallen leaves. If someone, like a scared child, was trying to hide their belongings, that leaf pile would have been the perfect natural camouflage. Instead, the bright yellow backpack was placed out in the open, highly visible, right near the guardrail. It went against every instinct of concealment. Taking into account the impossible dryness of the bag, the highly visible placement, and the fact that this specific area had actually been thoroughly searched by police teams just 1 day prior, investigators reached a terrifying conclusion. The backpack had not been there the whole time. It had been deliberately planted. And if it was planted recently, it meant the perpetrator was closely monitoring the police's search grids, waiting for an area to be cleared before dropping evidence there. But why? Was the killer taunting them? Or was this a desperate, calculated attempt to misdirect the massive police manhunt away from the true location of the boy? Operating under the chilling assumption that the backpack was a deliberate breadcrumb left by the perpetrator, the police centralized their search operations around that specific guardrail. They expanded outwards in massive, tight grids. To ensure absolutely nothing was missed, commanders constantly rotated the search teams, preventing visual fatigue and making sure fresh eyes were always scanning the harsh terrain. The search eventually extended to a series of nearby deep-water ponds. Underwater drones equipped with sonar and cameras were deployed, diving into the freezing, murky depths, but the cold water yielded nothing but mud and debris. By April 7th, 2 weeks into the nightmare, the search epicenter was shifted dramatically toward the immediate vicinity of the Adachi family home. This area possessed a very unique, somewhat haunting geography. Back in the 1980s, leveraging the natural beauty of the nearby Rurikei Gorge, this specific neighborhood had been a booming, highly popular tourist resort. But the economic bubble burst, the tourist boom faded, and what was left behind was a quiet, eerie, and severely dilapidated residential zone. Scattered all around the Adachi home were dozens of massive, long-abandoned resort buildings and homes. Many were structurally unsound, decaying, and slowly being reclaimed by the forest. Knowing that Yuki Junior was a highly adventurous, curious child who loved the outdoors, police could not rule out the horrifying possibility that he had wandered into one of these ghost town structures, fallen, got trapped, and couldn't get out. A specialized team of 60 officers armed with heavy shovels, crowbars, and advanced thermal imaging cameras systematically tore through the abandoned buildings. They breached locked doors and scanned the dark basements. Still, they found absolutely nothing. To compound their misery, relentless torrential spring rains turned the entire region into a muddy, impassable swamp, severely hampering the logistics of the search. As the days turned into weeks, a suffocating atmosphere of paranoia and sheer terror began to root in the community. Neighbors looked at each other with suspicion. If a boy as bright and energetic as Yuki Jr. could be snatched in a 150-meter window in broad daylight, whose child was next? Was there a predator hunting in their quiet town? On April 8th, Sonobe Elementary held its opening ceremony for the new school term. The atmosphere, normally joyous, was incredibly tense and somber. In direct response to the lingering threat, the school instituted a militaristic group commute policy. Children were no longer allowed to walk alone. They were escorted to and from school by a protective phalanx of parents and community volunteers. The Kyoto police drastically ramped up their presence, deploying cruisers to patrol the neighborhood and stationing uniformed officers directly at the school gates. The school administration also faced the fury of the parents. They held a special, highly emotional town hall meeting. The principal formally bowed and apologized for the catastrophic communication failure on the day of the disappearance. They instituted a new ironclad protocol. Moving forward, if a child was absent without prior notice, parents would be contacted within exactly 15 minutes. Furthermore, in a massive shift for Japanese school culture, the administration relaxed their strict rules, officially allowing students to bring cell phones and GPS tracking devices onto the campus. By April 10th, the scale of the operation was staggering. Over 1,400 police personnel had participated in the search. They had collected and analyzed over 320 tips from the public. But devastatingly, every single lead had turned into a dead end. Then came April 12th, exactly 20 days into the nightmare. The search teams experienced a second breakthrough. In a remote, highly inaccessible mountainous area located 6 kilometers, almost 4 miles, southwest of the school, searchers found Yuki Junior's black sneakers. The discovery of the shoes injected a final desperate burst of energy into the search. But the very next day, April 13th, the hope that had desperately sustained the community was finally, violently crushed. At 4:45 p.m., in a desolate, heavily wooded area about 2 kilometers south of the school, a police search team noticed something off the trail. In a place where vehicles rarely passed, hidden among the trees, they found a body. It was lying face up. The clothing was instantly recognizable to every officer on the force, a dark gray jacket and khaki pants. The scene was secured, and forensic odontologists were brought in. Using dental records, they quickly confirmed the devastating truth. It was the missing 11-year-old boy, Yuki Junior Adachi. The initial medical examination revealed something perplexing. There were no obvious, severe external injuries on the body. Based on the state of the remains, the time of death was estimated to be sometime in late March, likely very close to the day he vanished. The exact cause of death was pending a full autopsy, but one detail immediately elevated the case to a homicide investigation. Yuki Jr. was found completely barefoot. His body was located a staggering 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles, away from where his black sneakers had been found the day before. The terrain between those 2 points was a nightmare of sharp rocks, thorny underbrush, and jagged branches. It was physically, biologically impossible for an 11-year-old boy to navigate 4 kilometers of that punishing terrain without shoes. He hadn't walked there. He had been placed there. The case officially pivoted from a tragic missing persons search to a massive murder investigation. The confirmation of Yuki Jr.'s death plunged the city of Nantan into profound grief. The agonizing 20-day wait, fueled by prayers and hope, had ended in the absolute worst-case scenario. Out of deep respect for the family and to protect the fragile mental health of the students, Sonobe Elementary School announced a temporary shutdown. The desolate forest road where his body was discovered was quickly transformed into a heartbreaking makeshift memorial. Hundreds of people from across the prefecture made the pilgrimage to the site. They didn't just bring flowers. Understanding the boy's youth, the memorial overflowed with toys, his favorite candies, and sweet drinks. It is a cultural belief in Japan to offer these items so that the young soul will not feel hunger or fear on their long journey to the afterlife. In a particularly moving tribute, the owner of a large, imposing dog from Yuki Jr.'s neighborhood visited the site. Most children were terrified of the massive animal, but Yuki Jr. had never shown an ounce of fear. He was known to run up to the dog, offering gentle pets and warm hugs. The owner laid a bouquet of flowers among the candies, saying a final goodbye to the sweet, brave boy who had loved their pet. But while the community mourned, the detectives were working with cold, calculated precision. They took a map of the region and plotted 3 distinct points: the location of the yellow backpack, the location of the black sneakers, and the location of the body. The 3 points were miles apart from each other. When connected, they formed a massive geographic triangle spread across the Nantan wilderness. This spatial distribution was not the random, panicked dumping of evidence by a disorganized killer. This was deliberate. This was the work of someone who intimately, flawlessly understood the local geography. Someone whose daily life, commute, and activity radius intersected perfectly with this massive triangle. And the truth is, the police didn't have to look far to find someone who fit that exact description. In fact, they had a prime suspect in their crosshairs from the very first days of the investigation. The monster wasn't a stranger hiding in the woods. It was the man who had reported him missing. It was Yuki Adachi, Yuki Jr.'s stepfather. The police did not zero in on Yuki based on a gut feeling. They were following a massive trail of glaring, circumstantial red flags that he had arrogantly left behind. The first massive anomaly was his behavior on the day of the disappearance, March 23rd. Telephone records proved that Yuki had called the police to report Yuki Junior missing before the homeroom teacher had even called the mother to ask about his absence. How could he possibly know the boy was missing before the school even realized it? Furthermore, immediately after the mother finally spoke to the school and confirmed Yuki Jr. wasn't there, Yuki rapidly called the police again to formally initiate a criminal missing person report. Think about human nature. A normal parent, upon hearing their child isn't at school, goes into a frantic, denial-fueled search phase. They check the playground, call friends, retrace the walking route. Yuki skipped all of that. He completely bypassed the frantic searching phase and immediately, aggressively categorized the situation as a police matter. The second glaring issue emerged from a routine background check on his employment. Employment records revealed a highly suspicious anomaly. On the early morning of March 23rd, the exact day of the disappearance, Yuki had abruptly called into his company and taken an unannounced personal day off. This meant that on the day his stepson vanished, Yuki possessed a massive, unaccounted-for window of time, complete freedom of movement, and the perfect opportunity to commit a crime without his employer questioning his whereabouts. The third red flag was hidden in plain sight on the missing persons flyers. The incredibly detailed, high-resolution photos of the exact clothing Yuki Jr. was wearing that day were all provided directly by Yuki. When detectives analyzed these photos, they realized they weren't your typical candid family snapshots. They were clinical. They were clear, full-body shots, accompanied by extreme, focused close-ups on the specific details of the clothing, almost as if they were taken for an evidence catalog. Why would a father take such bizarrely specific photos of a child's outfit on a random Monday morning? As investigators dug deeper, more disturbing details about Yuki's demeanor began to surface. A week into the search, on March 31st, Yuki visited a local bakery to ask the owner if he could tape a missing person flyer to the window. The bakery owner later gave a chilling statement to the police. He noted that while Yuki was articulate and perfectly polite, his emotional state was horrifyingly flat. His eyes were dead. He showed absolutely zero anxiety, no desperation, and no signs of sleep deprivation that you would expect from a father missing his son. Several other employees in the shop corroborated this, stating that the man radiated a heavy, unspeakable, dark energy that made them physically uncomfortable. Then came the hard, physical evidence. Like many drivers in Japan, Yuki's vehicle was equipped with an integrated dashcam system. The police seized the memory card. The footage confirmed his alibi up to a point. It showed him driving toward the school area that morning. However, when analysts looked closer, they discovered that critical, substantial chunks of footage from the exact time window of the supposed drop-off had been manually, intentionally deleted from the device. This blatant attempt to destroy evidence and interfere with a police investigation became the linchpin of their case against him. But the most damning, undeniable piece of the puzzle came from digital forensics. Police obtained a warrant for Yuki's cell phone data. Using cellular triangulation and GPS tracking, they meticulously reconstructed his exact movements from the morning of March 23rd onward. The data was horrifying. The remote, isolated locations where the black sneakers and the body were later discovered correlated perfectly with Yuki's secret, solitary drives during the days the boy was missing.
The GPS data also finally explained the terrifying mystery of the perfectly dry yellow backpack. Because Yuki was actively participating in the community search efforts, playing the role of the grieving father, he had inside access to the police search grids. He knew exactly which forest sectors the police had already swept and cleared. Using this insider knowledge, he walked into a cleared zone and planted the backpack, attempting a desperate, calculated maneuver to misdirect the massive police manhunt away from the true location of the body.
Armed with an insurmountable mountain of evidence, the police made their move. On April 15th, just 2 days after recovering Yuki Junior's body, detectives requested that all members of the Adachi household come down to the station, operating under the guise of conducting routine interviews about the family's living environment.
Yuki arrived at the interrogation room playing his part perfectly. He was compliant, polite, and voiced his eagerness to fully cooperate with the authorities. When asked to recount the morning of the 23rd, he stubbornly stuck to his fabricated script. He insisted that he drove Yuki Jr. to the parking lot, watched him walk toward the school, observed no suspicious vehicles or individuals, and firmly suggested to the detectives that Yuki Jr. must have been the victim of a random, lightning-fast abduction by a stranger.
But the detectives were done playing games. They systematically dismantled his lies. They laid out the phone records showing his premature calls to the station. They presented the employment records proving his sudden day off. They confronted him with the manually deleted dashcam footage. And finally, they dropped the GPS tracking data on the table, showing his phone pinging at the exact coordinates where the body was found. Trapped in a corner with no escape, the impermeable mask finally slipped. The confident, cooperative facade crumbled into dust. The detectives watched as his facial expressions twisted into a subtle, defeated grimace. The silence in the room was deafening. Finally, Yuki Adachi lowered his head, stared at the floor, and in a quiet, chilling whisper offered his confession. "There is no doubt. I did it." The gruesome truth of what happened in that 150-meter window was finally revealed, and it was far worse than anyone had imagined. The story Yuki had spun to the entire nation about Yuki Jr. walking toward the school building was a complete, calculated fabrication. He never dropped the 11-year-old boy off. When they arrived at the Sonabe Elementary parking lot that morning, Yuki didn't put the car in park. Instead, he kept the doors locked, turned the vehicle around, and drove away from the school, heading toward a highly secluded public restroom facility nearby. It was there, in the quiet isolation of the morning, that a tragic argument broke out. According to his confession, the boy looked at him and said the words that shattered his fragile ego. "You are not my real father." Enraged by this rejection, Yuki snapped. He brutally strangled his young stepson to death. After murdering the boy, Yuki lifted Yuki Jr.'s lifeless body, stuffed it into the cramped trunk of his car, slammed it shut, and calmly drove back to his house, acting as if absolutely nothing had happened. The nightmare didn't end there. The following day, while the entire country was watching the news, Yuki initiated his sickening cover-up. He joined the civilian search parties. He used the chaos and movement of the massive manhunt as a flawless cover to manipulate the crime scene. Over the next several days, while pretending to search for his son, he secretly transported and transferred Yuki Jr.'s body 4 different times across the mountain range, attempting to stay one step ahead of the police dogs and search grids. Looking back at the beginning of the case, Yuki's sociopathic performance is truly terrifying. He had successfully manipulated an entire nation. He had even stood at the search sites, bowing deeply, tears in his eyes, offering profound, heartfelt thanks to the exhausted, muddy police officers for their dedication to finding his son. He weaponized their empathy, absorbing their sympathy while knowing exactly where the boy's decaying body lay hidden. Digital forensics hammered the final inescapable nails into his coffin. When cyber experts recovered his deleted internet search history, they found the undeniable blueprint of premeditated murder. In the days leading up to the crime, Yuki had repeatedly searched for tutorials on how to permanently wipe data from specific dashcam models, proving his intent to destroy evidence. But the most horrifying revelation was found in his browser history prior to March 23rd. The search bar contained queries that read verbatim, "How to dispose of a dead body." It was not a crime of sudden passion. It was a cold-blooded, meticulously planned execution. At 12:32 a.m. on April 16th, under the cover of darkness, the Kyoto Prefectural Police officially placed Yuki Adachi under arrest. They immediately established a specialized investigative headquarters focused entirely on the logistics of the body disposal, aiming to map out every single terrifying movement he made during the cover-up. Simultaneously, forensic teams descended upon the Adachi household and seized Yuki's vehicle, confiscating over 30 items of evidence, including clothing and cleaning supplies. Because the case is still making its way through the Japanese judicial system, many specific, gruesome details remain sealed from the public eye. However, from the fragments that have been released, we can construct a chilling psychological profile of the killer. Who exactly is Yuki Adachi? At 37 years old, his physical appearance was the definition of unremarkable. He was painfully ordinary. Acquaintances described him as dull, wooden, and incredibly stiff. He was the kind of guy who effortlessly blended into the background of a crowded room, entirely forgettable. When reporters tracked down his childhood friends, they were met with utter disbelief. They remembered Yuki as an incredibly gentle, soft-spoken boy, someone who wouldn't even hurt an insect. Throughout his early life, there was virtually no record of violent or negative behavior. However, beneath this carefully cultivated introverted exterior lay a highly intelligent, manipulative social chameleon. In middle school, Yuki was a dominant force on campus. He was highly active, excellent at reading a room, and incredibly skilled at manipulating group dynamics. He was so charismatic and adept at winning people over that he was a leading candidate for student council president. This duality continued into his adult life. At the time of the murder, Yuki was employed at an electrical equipment manufacturing firm. If you asked his colleagues, they would tell you he was the model employee. He was described as deeply serious, grounded, and hard-working. He never sought the spotlight, never complained about his workload, and in his many years at the company, he had never once been involved in a single workplace conflict or argument. But investigators quickly found the cracks in this perfect facade. The most glaring anomaly occurred just 4 days before he murdered Yuki Junior. Yuki was scheduled by his company to go on an important multi-day business trip. However, on the very eve of his departure, he abruptly canceled the trip, calling his manager and claiming he had contracted a sudden, severe viral infection that left him bedridden. Police now believe this was a calculated, fabricated lie, a necessary step to clear his schedule and lay the logistical groundwork for the nightmare he was about to unleash. Furthermore, while Yuki could effortlessly play the role of the perfect, agreeable employee in public, his private life was a dark, isolated void. He was completely emotionally stunted when it came to genuine human connection. He was entirely estranged from his biological parents, rarely visiting or speaking to them. Even within the Adachi household, living under the same roof as his wife and her family, he was a ghost. He remained deeply disconnected and distant from the family he had married into, a stranger living in their home, harboring a darkness they never saw coming. He was, in every sense of the word, a master of masks. A man who possessed the terrifying ability to smile in your face, politely thank you for your help, and sleep soundly in his bed, all while the innocent child he was entrusted to protect lay dead in the trunk of his car. The ultimate betrayal in this case, a father turning on a son, is what makes it so uniquely horrifying. The monster that the community was so terrified of wasn't waiting in the dark, rainy woods. He was the one driving the car. He was the one printing the flyers. He was the one standing right beside them. Thank you for joining me on this incredibly dark and twisted journey. If you appreciate the deep psychological dives we do here on the Puppeteer, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Let me know your theories and thoughts on this tragic case in the comments section below. Until next time, stay safe, always trust your instincts, and remember, the darkest, most terrifying secrets are often hidden in the brightest daylight. Goodbye.